you're a Sega fan, there's no doubt in my mind that you know the growth, success, and stardom the Sega Genesis had for Sega in the 90s, and has even left an impact still felt today. This is the console, along with a certain blue hedgehog, that absolutely shot Sega into the spotlight and gave Nintendo a run for their money. With a good mascot, smart marketing, and good games to boot, the Genesis was able to, for a small moment, allow Sega to dethrone Nintendo from the gaming throne and dominate the gaming market. But I don't feel this is something I need to explain in depth, as most of the Genesis lifespan is well known. What I want to focus on is a certain add-on that was made for the Genesis, the Sega 32X. Even though at this time the Sega Saturn was just right around the corner, Sega was looking for ways to expand the life of the Genesis, as it was still going very strong here in the US and other regions. But this was also a semi-response to Atari's upcoming Jaguar system, something to talk about at a later time. Now, the Sega CD was already made and released well before the 32X, so when the idea of yet another add-on was shown, well, people had their doubts. Hurt by the fact that the Sega Saturn had already been announced and was soon on its way, the Sega 32X seemed worthless to gamers. Why spend your money on this hunk of junk when the Saturn is just around the corner? Trip Hawkins, the founder of the 3DO company, even stated, and I quote, "Everyone knows that the 32X is a band-aid. It's not a next-generation system. It's fairly expensive. It's not particularly high performance, it's hard to program for, and it's not compatible with the Saturn. Ouch." Not to mention, Sega wasn't having the best time pulling developers to even make software for the 32X, as again, the new generation of consoles was almost here. Needless to say, the 32X flopped. It was ambitious, yes, but with the new console already on the way, it was honestly just not a good idea. Oh boy, now we're talking about something that still ruffles my feathers to even think about. Where do I even begin? Well, actually, let's rewind a bit before we even talk Saturn. I'll make this brief. Sony and Nintendo were originally in talks to create a CD-based add-on for the Super Nintendo called the PlayStation. Crazy, right? Prototypes were made, but this fell through. Nintendo found Sony would have massive control from their contract, which they did not like, and ditched Sony for their competitor, Philips, to make the add-on. This angered Sony, and it was ironic, as even this move still didn't lead to the add-on being made, instead getting those crappy CDI games with a Philips CDI.
You're not afraid of dragons, are you?
Following this, Sony approached Sega about a joint collaboration following this betrayal. Basically saying, you guys hate Nintendo, we hate Nintendo, let's join forces. But when former president of Sega of America, Tom Kalinske, phoned the board of directors of Sega of Japan to present the idea, well, this is the response he got. That's a stupid idea. Sony doesn't know how to make hardware. They don't know how to make software either. Why would we want to do this? They were too full of themselves and basically thought the Saturn was the best thing ever. This led to Sony going alone to make the PlayStation, which absolutely dominated. Was this a mistake on Sega's end? Maybe. As we already know, Sony was trying to leverage control over the deal with Nintendo, so we could speculate as to whether or not this was a good decision on Sega's part. The Sega Saturn was said to have been nearly completed by the end of 1993, but talks of the power of Sony's upcoming PlayStation made Sega a little anxious. So as a last-minute decision, they threw in a second video processor, VDB2, to enhance the Saturn's capabilities. This wasn't really a good idea. Sega of America had been fighting with Sega of Japan about the architecture of the system since the beginning.